What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 191 of Littleroot Lessons. I'm in a onesie, and I'm joined with Cal Ketsis.
And BD1, of course.
Yes, and BD1. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween weekend. Happy Halloween. I hope everyone's enjoying the festivities, and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, and by festivities, we do mean the weekend that happened in Toronto. We had our fourth regional weekend in a row, capping off a marathon of Regulation E majors in the month of October, and it's going to be our last event up until last major event up until LAIC, which I believe is the week before American Thanksgiving.
So, like 2-ish weeks from now,
Yeah, we have
kind of. Not the longest break in the world.
Oh man, I can actually, let's see. It is, you got
we've
weekend.
been pretty spoiled with the amount of tournaments there's been recently.
You got like, I think it starts, day one would be, I'm still in October. Yeah, it's day one is Friday, November 17th, which is also my 7.5 year anniversary that day. Fun fact. So they got 2.5 weeks off, about little close to 3. A little break there.
That would make a championship Sunday on my birthday. So
really,
yeah, great day to share with the LAIC finals, I guess. So good on them for sharing the best day of the year.
So to jump ahead of that. So that day, I'm going to be traveling down to my parents for Thanksgiving. Amanda and I are going to be spending the week with them. And that means that I will have to make sure I bring my microphone and my computer and everything to my parents so I can drive down, try to at least watch LAIC finals, and then hop on to talk about it. What I will not be able to watch the entire final day. Well, it's Championship Sunday, so I just watch the final.
It's just one battle. You can just skim all the way through to the end.
Yeah, so no, you're right. That's easy. The day before... We'll get to that point when we get to it. We're getting very ahead, but right now let's talk about the here and now, and by that I mean what happened yesterday and today. We're going to start with day one usage for Toronto. Lead us off on day one usage.
So we have Fluttermane returning back to the top for the first time in what feels like a really long time. Still coupled up towards the top with its favorite Iron Hands Lando T partnership. Ogerpon, surprisingly, not in the it's in number 10 now. It's not in that top 5. The Ogerpon Hearthflame. We do have the water one taking that top spot for the Ogerpons, and all 11 of the 12 Pokemon here are over 20% usage. Which is, I don't think we've seen this much centralization, I think, in a long time with teams.
So it feels really weird because you are absolutely right, and we're actually going to see this even more when we do switch over to day 2. While there are 11 Pokemon at 20% or greater, at the same time, it feels like every single time you throw on stream, a lot of these teams are super unique. You still, just look at what we had. When we look at our top 8, a lot of these teams are going to be super different. And I think what it is you could pretty much take 4, or you could take 3 to 5 of any of these bonds, make a core out of them, and then it's like you're pulling in your Kingambit, your Goldengo, your Cresselia, or like any of these top mons, Amoonguss, which was having to come back
Smack
this
some
weekend.
Glue on it.
Roaring
Smack
Moon,
some glue around them.
Yep. Yeah, Roaring Moon as well is another mon that had a lot of usage that just missed this top 12, and it's like everything's the same, but at the same time everything is super different, which I kind of like. I really enjoy how this format has been developing.
Yeah, I think it'll show, also in day 2, just there's been a lot of shifts between day one and day two in this tournament. Such as Urshifu jumping 5 spots.
Yeah,
Ogerpon
hmm
completely
gone.
falling off the map here. Gone in day two usage. Iron Bundle, Golden Co, Amoongus are all back up in that top 12. It feels like it feels like the days of like Reg C, Reg D are kind of back upon us again. Reg C with like some of the extra Reg D spikes in there.
No, it's definitely like that, and you bring that up. There isn't a single Pokemon introduced in Regulation E in the top 12, and it also does show the overall dominance that Pokemon from Reg C and Reg D did bring. You look at specifically for Reg D, you have the Urshifu, Rillaboom, Arcanine Hisuian, Lando, Torn, and Heatran. So 6 of the Pokemon in the top 12 were all were all introduced in Regulation D. And to
Yeah,
be quite honest, it's then you have 3 of the remaining 6 were Reg Beamons, actually. These Paradox Pokemon that are insanely powerful. Actually, if you want to go all the way back, I believe it was to the Regulation B tier listing that I did with Carl and Manny. Um, Probably was close at some point, like this past winter. Our 3 S tier Paradox Mons were Hands, Flutter, and Bundle, and here we are, almost a year after we've had that conversation. Added the Ruin Mons, added all of these insanely powerful legendary Pokemon back in. Just a lot of old classics, and here we are with these
hmm
3 new Pokemon that were like, oh yeah, these are going to be great. Well, they're still great even with all of the new power that's been added to the format.
yeah, and just to mention these older Pokemon from older formats kind of coming back, Amoongus is something that we haven't seen really at all in all of Regulation E. A staple through every format through Regulation D. It completely fell off, and it's right back here. And I think that is obviously, in part to the Ogerpon forms not finding themselves on as many teams. You were rolling before, close to like a 50% chance of running into one of those Ogerpon forms, which really helped to shut down Amoongus a ton. But you're not running to them nearly as much anymore. They're not within 20% usage on day two, which makes it a much stronger meta for Amoongus, which we saw all the way up until finals today.
I think one of the other big things, specifically with Amoongus and Goldango also popping up, these are 2 Pokemon. They've always been good as they're just waiting for their spot in the format. I think
hmm
a lot of people looked at Flutter on a downturn and said, okay, if Flutter's on a downturn, we can go with more Goldango. And a lot of these teams, they haven't really been building checks in for Amoongus. You're seeing less Terra Grass, safety goggles, which was a staple on pretty much every any team that you would build for, God, four formats, is an item that is not seen whatsoever anymore. And it just
Even
felt
longer if
like
you count Sword and Shield in there too.
absolutely. And it got to a point where what I think happened on a lot of these teams, especially the balanced teams that were using Wellspring Ogerpon as like the grass type Gloomon, they're looking at these team builders. I mean, Paul Chu, of course, was probably looking at it and saying, "Why am I going to use Ogerpon when no one's respecting Amoongus, and Amoongus can just sit here and win games on its own because you have the safe defensive Terra, you have the ability to sleep everything, you have the redirection. If people aren't
hmm
respecting Amoongus, that's when it becomes Amoongus's greatest time to shine. I wouldn't be shocked
Yeah,
if we see Amoongus usage drop. Not I wouldn't be shocked if it is in this 11, 12 spot again, but I think
or had like a little downturn even.
people know it's a thing again, and I think it's Amoonguss did well because no one respected it, and now you're going to see that respect again for this Pokemon that has really withstood the test of time and was almost able to sneak in another win under the guise of Palchua.
Yeah, I think that the thing with Amoonguss too, just while we're on the topic, um, that a lot of people were disrespecting is that everyone sees Ogerpon as like a hard check to Amoonguss, but that's only before they terrestrialize. You know, a
Exactly.
lot of the Ogerpon water form really relies on that special defense boost to live. Um, Flutter Mane hits and things like that. They're not like the bulkiest of Pokemon. They take, you know, 2 or 3 hits most of the time, and after they terrestrialize, it's you
It's
know,
fair game.
you can put them to sleep. They're no longer a grass type. You can redirect their hits once again because they're no longer a grass type as well. You don't get that attack boost if you're the fire form either, which is really important. Plus a nice defensive terrestrialization, like you said, can really answer some of that Ogerpon after Terra. So I think that, you know, playing around Ogerpon has also become maybe a little bit more you know, understood. It was still new. A lot of people were very afraid of its boosts, and now people understand where, you know, you have to Terra, where you don't Terra, and can maybe play the Amoonguss better, especially experienced Amoonguss players like Paul Chua.
Of course. I think just in general, especially just looking at this usage, it's day one we had 11 Pokemon with 20%. Day 12 we have all 12 Pokemon have 20% or more usage, and I
Hmm.
think it just goes back to there is a select handful, a condensed meta of these insanely powerful Pokemon, and at the same time they all do different things. They're all able to mix and match with each other, and there still are like these other Pokemon. When we go into looking at the teams in just a moment, we're going to see that a lot of these teams are really put together, and each Pokemon has its own spot within within each team to complement these insanely powerful top 12 that we see right here for day two. Going on to the teams, we are going to be using data just compiled by Lab Mouse, built by our very own Tim. Are there any specific Pokemon usage wise you want to look at, or do you want to just dive straight to the teams?
Um, Maybe we just go to the teams and we can kind of you know, look at different Pokemon, how they, you know, perform, because there's some interesting ones in here that we might want to, you know, take a look at in terms of how much teams are actually bringing them, such as like Salamence or Armarouge.
Of course. Well, the first thing I would like to know, again, going with no regulation E Pokemon in the top 12 for usage, there is only a single regulation E Pokemon in the top four of this tournament, and it's the Pokemon that you expected it to be, but it's not in the form that you expected it to be in.
The teal mask Ogerpon by ran by Jamie Boyd with the Razor Claw for the improved critical hits on the Ivy Cudgel, which I know I played the Ogerpon team on the Littleroot Lessons channel a little bit ago, and I was running the Scope Lens Ivy Cudgel for a little bit. I changed it over to Life Orb before the video started just because of consistency, but I think that like whenever you can like steal a crit or you can steal an upgraded crit chance, especially on top of Swords Dance, like why not, right? You're not sacrificing your health. And the speed boost on the grass type Ogerpon is also really, really important on this team.
It really is. Right now, we thought that Ogerpon, especially Wellspring Ogerpon, was going to be the death of the Tornadoes Urshifu teams. That is not the case whatsoever. So we're going to be seeing a lot of speed, and to
Yeah.
have a Pokemon that can resist Urshifu and to go into get into speed, sure, you're going to probably die to a Bleak Windstorm or two, but it happens. Um,
Hmm.
but getting the Terra Grass to be able to get that double boost on your Ivy Cudgel, have the super high critical hit ratio, it's just a cool Pokemon, and of course the Defiant boost as well, when Jamie did his, I was on his day when he was on stream on day one when he did his winners interview. He explained how he was trying to force King Gambit onto the team the entire time. He needed Intimidate to help with people intimidating into the Roaring Moon and the Arcanine specifically, and just came to him. Well, there's an Ogerpon form with Defiant, so why don't I just use that and slap a Razor Claw? And every time I get an Ivy Cudgel critical hit, I'm just getting a KO. And so this is probably, I mean, Jamie just built some of the most unique teams that we've seen. And just to go through the rest of it, we have the Roaring Moon here, which is this new booster speed tailwind support with Terra Poison. We have the banded Hisuian Arcanine. Substitute. I didn't even realize it was substitute Urshifu with
Yeah, that's really cool.
With the splash plate, which is the plate Mystic Water equivalent, and then the Life Orb Goldango with Nasty Plot, and this is honestly the part of the team that threw me off the most. The Assault Vest Thunderous Therian, and again, like going through team building. Boyd said that he was looking for a special attacker that was off the ground, and that's Thunderous Therian right there.
Yeah.
It goes to show, like, he has three Pokemon that were top 12 usage for day 2, and he was able to use these non-top 12 Mons in specific roles to build around the 3 insanely powerful Pokemon that he did bring. And I think that's, like, the whole how team building is going to be going in this format.
Yeah, I think that Ogerpon grass is really cool too to counter, like the Urshifu, the Choice Scarf Urshifu specifically, because you can get that speed boost, be faster than them, and then KO them. But yeah, Jamie Boyd's team was definitely, I think, one of the most unique here.
Definitely.
But obviously, we need to shout out Chupacross getting that first regional win. Um, Really, really awesome. Very happy for him. I have a transitive regional win now. Because of my win against him on stream. And
Yeah,
anyone
that's
who
exactly how that's how that
better than
works.
that, anyone who has beat me also has a transitive regional win. So you're very welcome for that. You are all regional champions at some point in time.
So right before we were recording, wasn't able to watch this game. I wasn't able to watch finals as it was happening. I had to watch it after, and I just got the text. I'm a transitive regional champion, and I'm sitting there like, what the hell does Jay mean? And then I saw it, and like I think it was halfway through game 1. I'm just sitting there like, oh yeah, Chuppa's going to win, and since Jay beat Chuppa on stream back in Hartford, that's how he gets it. So this team here, this is a team that I have a lot of experience running. This is the Hirofumi team that was very popular in Regulation D, which also won last week's regional as well in Lille.
Yep. Have you seen the memes with it's Chuppa's face and it's the winner from last week, like Santi, I think his name is.
Yeah, I saw it. Aaron Trailer retweeted
they look
it.
very similar, and they played the same exact teams, and were sitting in the same exact spot, and they just like transitioned into the other face.
Yeah, that was
so funny.
I think Aaron Trailer made that.
Yeah, Trailer
it.
did. Yeah, that was amazing.
And it's like
really funny that it happened twice.
Which this is an amazing team. I'm actually shocked it didn't get a major win back in Regulation D. This was the team I piloted most of Regulation D. I love this team. It's the classic. You have your classic 3-attack Mystic Water, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Rocky Helmet Tornadoes with the Rain Dance, Tailwind, all that jazz. And then you just have a bunch of great Glumons. Chien-Pao just helps Chien-Pao helps all of the Pokemon besides Urshifu and Fluttermane. Tornadus and Fluttermane put out more damage. Rillaboom's just an amazing Gloomon that gets even stronger with Grassy Glide. Banded Terra Normal E-Speed from Hisuian Arcanine is cooler than Banded Terra Normal E-Speed from Dragonite. There, I said it, and I'm right. Because Arcanine has 4 rings this month, and Dragonite doesn't have that many.
No, that Arcanine as a Pokemon is completely and utterly cracked, and we keep seeing just different versions of Arcanine, different Arcanine types, whether it be like I know Citrus Berry won a couple weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
Ban the past 2 weeks.
Yep.
This Pokemon is very flexible in a format where it feels like it shouldn't be that flexible. There's a lot of threats to it, but it keeps pulling it out. It's so strong. And it's very strong, in the rain as well, which is just so surprising, I think, to everybody. So
Yeah. No, I absolutely love this Pokemon. It's probably I never expected, especially when it came out, I never expected to not for it to be this good, but that I would also enjoy using it. Whenever I can throw a Hisuian Arcanine on my team, I'm doing it, and it's just if you have not used this Pokemon yet, it has won 4 straight regionals back to back to back to back. Use this Pokemon; it is going to change your life, hopefully.
yeah,
Um,
I need to get on the train when I get back into play it a little bit more.
we'll
This
be good.
Pokemon just runs through teams, and it was extremely clutch in the finals set. It
Mm,
was clutch in the top four. Choppa obviously had to make some. He made some really good calls, specifically in game two.
yeah,
Like calling that he wasn't going to that Paul wasn't going to rage powder. But this team is so incredibly well constructed. There's great matchups into everything, and just so much damage.
yeah. I think the biggest change from the Regulation D Hirofumi to this current iteration of the team is the Regulation D Hirofumi. It was a booster speed flutter with Calm Mind and Terra Grass, while this one is the booster special attack with 3 attacks Terra Fairy, which is your more common booster flutter main set. And again, it's just all about getting that damage out. There is just so much pressure that this team puts out from turn one, and it legitimately never lets up. So
Yeah.
congratulations to Chuppa for piloting this team to an amazing win. Um, uh,
Finally getting that regional that has been eluding him for, since the first one of Scarlet and Violet.
yeah, was able to get one in this season. Let's go to the next team, Paul Chua, who is running a Roaring Moon Balance team, as he usually does. A few different choices here. Well, first of all, the Roaring Moon is the classic Terraflying acrobatics set that we are used to with Dragon Dance, though.
Yep,
You have the Shuka Berry on Heatran, no steel coverage on Iron Hands, both electric for Wild Charge and Volt Switch. The Rocky Helmet on Amoonguss, Specs Perish Song Flutter, and then the
that's awesome.
classic Choice Scarf Lando with Terraflying. Uh,
Yeah.
this is this is just it's just good stuff's balance, and Paul Chua's the best good stuff's balance player on the planet right now.
Yeah, so you pointed out the Iron Hands not having any steel coverage, which actually, it ended up being very important in the finals after
Mm-hmm.
Iron Hands, missed a KO on Fluttermane, which really could have changed the course of this game. you know, that was obviously one situation, but that change was meaningful there. The Volt Switch is obviously a weaker move on the Iron Hands with the very low special attack. But this team is also really, really cool. It's interesting to see the return of like the Shukaberry on Heatran.
Mm-hmm.
With terrestrialization, I think a lot of those resist berries have kind of hit the hay a little bit and not been all that important. But this is a really good utilization of it. And then the rest of the team is that classic good stuff balance. The D dance improved Roaring Moon with knockoff
Yes.
that it didn't have before, which is obviously a great move. And Specs Perish Song Flutter is really really fun.
I really like because and it's been a common trend. Like a lot of the specs flutters, instead of using a coverage move, throwing in a support move. I know Charm was another option. There was a Trick Room, like Trick Room specs flutter
Yeah,
was a
Trick Room's
thing
been
in
very
Regulation C.
popular recently too.
Mm. And part of this, and that is partially because well, the Amoongus really helps, but partially because even like your balanced teams in a lot of cases were so fast that if you did get into Trick Room, you would have a really rough time. So having a way to shut it off was always going to be huge.
Hmm.
But the Perish option as well, Paul's just amazing at really pivoting his Pokemon around, getting them in proper positioning, and so that Perish song, to just have that in his back pocket as a way where maybe he realizes that he can't out damage you, but in 3 turns he can just make sure you don't get a KO, and he'll get two off the Perish. I mean, it's definitely a tech that makes a lot of sense when you look at the way he's played and the way he's performed with these sorts of teams
Yeah,
in the past.
it's just it's an interesting tech to me because this team has an assault vest and two choice scarfer, two choice users on it, so there isn't a lot of protect to try to stall through those turns. So I don't know how much if we saw it at all used on stream. I wonder how important it was through Paul's run, or if maybe he would want to a different move looking back on things.
I mean, I can see if like we could probably find out if that's the case. I think one of the other things like Roaring Moon does have a really good special defense when it's not switching into a fairy type attack.
Yeah, and you're also
Honest,
using a Moongus to kind of
yeah, you have the
keep that
Amoongus.
positioning for your choicers.
You have Intimidate on the landers, which helps with damage reduction. Iron Hands is always fat, especially with the Assault Vest. And to be quite honest, this might be where the Sugar Berries comes into play with the Heat Ran, to be able to switch into a ground type attack and not need to burn your Terra on the
Yeah,
Heat Ran, where maybe if you wanted another defensive Terra just to get that extra survivability and just overall optionality with your Terra to not be forced into anything, or even just forced into a protector or switch. That could be
yeah,
really huge.
that definitely makes sense. It has those defensive options. That Fluttermane obviously with its specs is trying to do mostly damage.
Mm.
Um, but it has that um fourth option if Paul ever sees, hey, I can maybe win this. Maybe the Amoongus has everything asleep. I could put this to sleep and then just stall out with Amoongus Rage Powders, and stall the Perish Song through.
Yeah. Let's go. Moving on to our next team. Raghav brought another um, relatively common regulation decor in the Goldango, Regidrago, Tornadus um, hyper offense team. This also featuring the Scarf, Urshifu, Terra Poison. You have the Rain Dance on Tornadus, along with Protect, which is a tech that isn't seen as often. The Hisuian Arcanine with the support set, Will-O-Wisp, Citrus Berry, and the AV Rillaboom.
Mm-hmm. You also have the Metal Coat Terra Dragon Golden Go here.
Yes, Metal
Um,
Coat instead of lefties is definitely an
yeah,
interesting call.
get that boost and make it rain. Just get that one time big damage. I could see that. I love Reggie Drago. I love that call. I think it's especially with Fluttermane falling below that 50% usage. Reggie Drago has lost one of its best switch-ins, on half the team. So in half the matchups, it's really hard to deal with. So another cool Pokemon here. This team is really awesome. Um, Raghav piloted it amazingly as well. Was on stream multiple times throughout the weekend, and yeah, this is awesome team.
What's funny, so in their day one interview, they stated that Drago was, at least at that point, the Pokemon that they were bringing the least. But even its presence of okay, I know if you have Flutter, I'm forcing you to bring the Flutter. I'm just going to bring my anti-Flutter stuff,
Yeah,
and or even just I believe it was one of the stream games where they forced the Arcanine into using the Terra to Terra like their opponent's Sunya Arcanine went Terra Fairy. It's like, okay, well now you're food for my Goldengo, and I can Terra Dragon the Goldengo and just click Make It Rain, and well, you just made yourself weak to that.
yeah. Have fun
It,
taking my Metal Coat boosted Make It Rain, bud.
yeah, it's just the amount of attention and pressure that that Regidrago brings was more than enough to merit using the Pokemon, and to force your opponent into place that might not be super optimal for them for the long run because they're so short sighted into I don't want this Dragon Fang Dragon Energy blowing my team up,
Yeah,
which if you also just aren't prepped, like if you don't have any fairy coverage or the ability to like resist dragon, that's just what it's going to do to you.
yeah. I think also the Terra Poison on the Urshifu is an interesting call here. Um, the resistance to Fluttermane is really great. It's a very nice defensive typing. Also, if you want to take a close combat from an opposing Urshifu, um, we did see that they Terra poisoned in the rain and were facing an opposing Urshifu that was able to come in and click Surging Strikes and just obliterate it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is obviously something that is a danger, but you get a lot of that defensive utility on the Choice Scarf being able to say, hey, I can really eat this Fluttermane Moonblast if I Terra Poison here and get off of nice strong Surging Strikes.
Of course. I do think one of the other things to note, compared to the other teams that we've seen so far with Rillaboom, is the fact that Raghav used a Terra Grass Rillaboom to boost that Grassy Glide and that Wood Hammer damage, and that's been another um, interesting ripple we've seen with the addition of Grassy Glide back in the game, where Rillaboom was solely going for defensive Terra typing Regulation D. It's now sprinkling in the offensive Terra typing in grass in order to get those bring Grassy Glide back to like close to its former level of damage output from
Hmm.
the Sword and Shield era.
Yeah, you're probably pushing KOs on certain Fluttermane spreads and Urshifu spreads, even with the Terra Grass.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it is
hits like a truck.
specifically yeah I think it specifically is to pick up certain Fluttermane set spreads. You need to make sure that your Terra Grass to get those spreads.
Yeah, I lost so much of the offensive damage from the nerf to Grassy Glide, but you can just counteract that with the Terror, like you said, and just really do that damage, pick up those KOs you need, and Rillaboom is once again all over the top eight here.
Mm.
It won the tournament. It's so strong, and the grassy terrain too on this team with the Metal Coat Golden Go is a lot of additional healing that's like a replacement for the leftovers.
It
Makes
is,
it for a really delicious combo together.
yes. So we did already talk about Jamie Boyd's team, so we're not going to go there. And speaking of grass types, while Bobby Rochelle's team looks very similar to Chuppa's team, there are a few differences. You have the Iron Hands here. Give me a moment. You have the Iron Hands here as a Terra Poison Clear Amulet with still no Protect. Um, and
But
the other
Ice
thing,
Punch,
yes, with Ice Punch. To be quite honest, you're running Ice Punch. I mean, you probably want the fake out pressure, but if you wanted like a poison type with Ice Punch and that didn't care about Intimidate, run Okidogi.
Iron
Uh,
Hand stats are better.
yeah, I couldn't even say that with a straight face. I just ignore me.
That's
Um,
like, yeah, it just like it has better stats and like you get the wild charge too. You get that
yeah,
strong electric stab, which I think is to with Okidogi, you're running the poison jab, which is weaker,
yep.
or you're running
Gunk shot which
the
misses.
gong shot, which misses all the time. And with this, instead of being like I'm a hard counter to Lando with my guard dog plus ice punch, you're saying I'm not a hard counter, but I also don't lose.
Yeah,
You
it's like
know,
I do other things.
and I can pick
Um,
up that KO probably into the or two hit into the Terra flying and one hit into the non Terra without the intimidate drop. So you pop the clear amulet.
One of the things I also find interesting with this Iron Hands is the fact that it's using close combat over Drain Punch, and you'd think like without it holding the vest or not having any protecting moves, you'd think that it would want at least Drain Punch to be able to stay on the field, but it seems like he really, really wanted to maximize his damage, and the healing also came from another place. Jay, Sinistra has finally, for this week and this week only, escaped the allegations of it being just the most underperforming mid Pokemon that we've seen.
The tea
Sinistra
was piping hot this week.
Sinistra finally has its first top cut, um, using a nasty plot variant in order to boost up and put out a lot of damage. Matcha Gotcha is a spread move, base 80, and so after a nasty plot as well, not only are you able to put out a lot of damage with that Matcha Gotcha and have the burn, but you're also able to recover a lot as well.
Yeah, tons of healing because you're healing 50% from each Pokemon, which
Mm-hmm.
can end up being like 100% of the damage dealt to one of them. It's a lot of it's a lot of healing. Sinistra's HP stat to begin with is not like all that high, so your healing ends up coming in much easier. It's similar to like Hornleech on Ogerpon. I think
Mm-hmm.
that this set reminds me a lot of Ogerpon sets. A
Yeah.
lot of I'm gonna have the additional bonus of healing my teammates and being when I switch in, but I can also do the redirection and set up stuff myself, do a lot of damage. There's also I just noticed it. Lear Tornadus is here.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, there's not even, before we get to that, I just realized this is heat proof Sinistra, so maybe we're just all
It's
running
not
it wrong.
hospitality. Are we bugging?
It's it's heat, unless, I mean, I went to school for math. I can't read. Uh,
That definitely says heat proof.
that's, okay, that's good.
I guess with the
Um,
Terra Steel, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, that does. That does make a lot more sense. And there are a lot of fire types high in usage. So maybe
Man,
everyone
this
was
team
just
is
using Sinistra
wild.
wrong the entire time.
This team is crazy.
Yeah. Back to what we were saying. Someone call Swede, because I'm pretty sure he took Bobby's team. Um, it's not a Lear Dusclops, but the Lear on the Tornadus, not a lot of the Tornadus use Rain Dance in order to boost their off the offense, specifically on their Urshifu Rapid Strike. However, the issue is only Urshifu gets that bonus. Being able to
Yeah.
use Lear to help your Iron Hands, your Urshifu, your Arcanine, and your Chimpao pick up all of these extra KOs is amazing. And on
Hmm.
offense as well, the Tornadus here is a Sharp Beak Tornadus, so the Bleak Wind Storm is doing a lot of extra damage. Like, I mean, pretty much everything on this team, um, outside of the Sinistra, which might need a nasty plot boost, is able to again put out immediate turn one damage, and the train just isn't stopping.
Yeah, and that's I think also the Lear is probably an important factor in why we're running Clear Amulet Iron Hands here.
Mm,
It is there to do a lot of damage, pick up KOs quick, hit that close combat. Um,
yes.
you know, n- n- pick up KOs on Pokemon that it wouldn't be able to with that Lear Tornadus next to it. I assume the Iron Hands probably has quite a bit of speed on it. You run it next to the Tornadus and try to outspeed some stuff surprisingly too.
Mm.
It's a really good synergy together, and I think that this team obviously did very very well. We see like double dark on the Chien Pao as well with that lash out to counter intimidate spam into those strong physical attackers on the team. It's a really well constructed team with some really unique ideas.
And not even just the Intimidate, any team that's using Icy Wind still, or just really any attack that has a secondary effect of a stat drop. Opposing Bleak Windstorm's another example of this to punish those Pokemon as well for like, you got the Bleak Windstorm speed, and it lowered my speed. Well,
Yeah.
here's a lash out, you're dead, and doesn't matter if you outspeed me if you have 0 HP.
Yeah, this team is really awesome. This Sinistra is really really cool too. Just a completely different look at the Pokemon that we have not seen before.
So moving on, we're going to look at the next two teams. They're relatively together because they are both this
Oh,
first
these are
one.
so different.
Yeah, well, it's a Blood Moon team, and
Blood
it's
Moon
two
Trick
different
Room,
ways
but one
to
of
look
them
at
is
Blood Moon.
size spam. The other one is Dusclops weakness
No,
policy.
it's size spam with with a like a tornado's Urshifu mode. For me, just in general, like I love Blood Moon. I might have called it mid earlier on, and after using it, I used it last week to come in second place at the Fall River Premier Challenge. I love this Pokemon. It is so fun to use. Again, another Pokemon where if you haven't used it, give it a shot. It is super super fun, and we had two of them make cut this week, and again, it was like two different aspects. Uh, Enzo's team had the Psy Spam with the Terra Fire Indeedee, with
The
the
only
Terra.
defensive Terra.
Yes, the literally the only defensive Terra on this team. Um, and then the other interesting options, you had the Brick Break Swords Dance Waterfoo, the Throat Spray Blood Moon. You do have the Covert Cloak Bleak Windstorm Grass Knot Tornadus in order to hit those bulky water types. Terra Psychic Life Orb Armor Rouge because boy oh boy you want that expanding force to pick up everything. And then looking at this is probably a because I don't believe Enzo ever was on stream, but just looking at this set, this is probably a special attack boosting Fluttermane.
Yeah, that would make
This
sense on this team.
To be quite honest, if anything, at least like not saying it's completely equivalent, but just the way that the team looks to me, it reminds me a lot of like the 2-2-2 Dozo teams where you have like three different cores and your opponent needs to figure out which one you're going to use, and you can pretty much pick out the two cores that are going to do best into each opponent. You have the
I
tornado.
see. I see where you're going with this.
Mm-hmm. Because you have the Tornadus Urshifu mode, you have the Psy Spam mode with Indeedee, you have just a generic Trick Room mode with Indeedee Ursaluna. And the Ursaluna can also come in with the Armor Rouge.
Yeah.
Fluttermane's just a great Pokemon, and you can throw it on anywhere. But it gives you the opponent with this specific team here needs to guess what are you doing, and if they pick wrong, like let's just say they're prepping for Tornadus Urshifu, and you see Side Spam come out, you might be screwed like from turn zero, and that's
Yeah.
what these teams, along with the 2-2-2 Dozo teams, are able to do. It's definitely not a type of team I would run personally. I just don't. Side Spam and I don't get along. But in general, I think it's like a really cool team to like it's a very unique team to bring to a tournament and to do this well in.
I I somewhat disagree with your points how this is like similar to the 222 Dozo. I think that those pieces really only operate like separately as, cores. Meanwhile, I think that this team, it has the ability to make you guess, which I think a lot of really well constructed teams make you guess in your lead matchups. But I think that this one has a lot more flexibility between the modes, unlike the 222 Dozo.
Mm.
The Indeedee can pair up next to your Flutter main and just click follow me and Dazzling Gleam spam. You
Yep.
can do Trick Room stuff with Armor Rouge to set your Ursaluna later on. You can do Indeedee plus Urshifu or Tornadus plus Fluttermane. Like there's a lot of ways, even Tornadus plus like Ursaluna Blood Moon in certain situations can like be very important. Tornadus plus Armor Rouge. Armor Rouge actually has a decent speed stat. Um, I think that there's like a lot of flexibility between these options that the 222 doesn't have, and that's like I think one of the reasons why this team did so well this weekend. And we've seen a lot of size spam teams doing well recently because they add in that really strong mode that's like, I need to fear this, I need to answer it, similar to how Dozo teams do, but they flex really well together.
No, I definitely agree with what you were saying. I think when compared to 222, it's more so like that's like the other team, sort of like with
Yeah,
the I could do all these options. One of the things I would be interested in is the speed stat specifically on the Blood Moon and the
yeah,
Armor
yeah,
Rouge. I'm not saying that they have like speed investment, but maybe those are 31 IV modest instead of like the 0 IV quiets, specifically on the Blood Moon to like take advantage or as much advantage as it can of the tornadoes. The overall, I will say the one thing I really don't like about the team, just in general, is
brick break.
mainly well, I know. I do like the brick break on Urshifu. I think that a lot of the times you're going to want to click Surgeon Strike because it's one of the best attacks in the game,
Yeah,
and there isn't still enough screens and snow around. And I can see it on a team like this going up against a team that can set up screens and can play you bulkier to outlast you could
yeah,
be
it's
a
probably
lot of
good. It's
trouble.
like the Baxcalibur teams,
Yep.
like specifically to help your armorers do more damage into it.
Yeah. No, so I like that. It's I'm not huge on the throat spray or Solunas, but again, that
Mm,
could definitely be an item crunch. Personally, I think Life Orb is the best item on Ursaluna Blood Moon. It gives you the damage boost. It's the most consistent one in terms of that damage. And the only other option that I really like is the weakness policy stuff with Blood Moon.
yeah,
And the only mon that's really setting your policy. I mean, maybe you could do like your grass knot's going to do too much damage into the Blood Moon.
way
Uh,
too much.
Urshifu's going to again do way too much. So I think the issue there is he probably wants the life orb on the Armor Rouge, which is probably more of a main mode than the Ursaluna,
Yeah.
and you can't proc the policy. So I understand why you're using the throat spray. It's just not a an item that I would overall suggest using on the Pokemon.
I think I like Assault Vest on Ursaluna Blood Moon too. I think that's something that maybe hasn't been seen too much. I think it works well with like your Blood Moons and stuff because you can click Blood Moon into like Vacuum Wave as your fourth move,
Yeah,
um,
or
and
even
pick
just
up
have like
some
fairy
some
coverage and
KOs.
Moonblast.
Yeah, yeah. I think it has really great coverage moves. It has a lot of strong options. And its special defense stat is its weakest of all of them, so allowing it to survive hits a little bit better is helpful. But the throat spray and the weakness policy are the two that have been doing better.
Mm.
And we have Life Orb actually, and as the other one, which is a little surprising considering you're running it with the Dusclops.
So this is 5 out of the 6 Pokemon that I use. So technically 6 out of the 6 Pokemon I used last week. The only difference, actually, like outside of like Terra types between the team I ran and this team is well, I ran Wellspring Ogerpon, and you see the Ogerpon is actually Cornerstone because we all thought that 4 weeks
Hype.
into the season that the two Ogerpons that cut Toronto are going to be Teal Mask and Cornerstone.
I'm hyped to see Cornerstone doing so well. I have it on my UDL team.
Mm-hmm.
I love rock types too. I was not a huge believer in it, but it's really been having some good finishes. I know it finished top 16 in the past couple events, and now has its first top cut. Along with the teal mask one, we have the two underdogs of the Ogre Ponds coming out to play this weekend. And this team is really really cool. I love seeing Dusclops do well. The
It's so
Chi-Yu
fun.
support is very smart with like Snarl. I think Focus Sash Chi-Yu is amazing. Um, and the rest of the team is just really well constructed. It's pretty standard otherwise for like your Blood Moon Trick Room stuff, but it's so weird seeing the Dusclops with no policy on the Blood Moon.
So I think again, just speaking from experience using the team, it's just making sure that you have that more consistent damage. The ability
Yeah.
to have the life orb, like especially with the Terra Normal, and to be quite honest, I don't even think you need to be the Terra Normal. I like just the way that the format is moving. I do believe that Terra Grass, which is what Justin Knox used with Life Orb, might be a better option solely so you can work better out of Trick Room. Because this team is able to work out of Trick Room. You have the Landers, you have the hands, the Ogerpon, the Chi-Yu, even the Blood Moon, if you put it in the right scenario, doesn't need the Trick Room. It just needs the attention off of it to be able to get off a really powerful Blood Moon or a Hyper Voice. And if you went with like a Terra Grass instead of a Terra Normal, I think that would help more.
Hmm.
Specifically, why I think he was using the Ogerpon and why I also like with the Chi-Yu. So one of the issues this team has is against if a team has Taunt Tornadus plus another way of shutting down um, Trick Room. So, for
Yeah.
example, your the Regulation E Rinya team that is the Tornadus plus Furgraph with Imprison. This team this like archetype really struggles against that, and the Chiyu Ogerpon is really good into that. Chiyu's Dark Pulse is able to threaten all of your imprisoned Trickumons, and Ogerpon, what it's really good at doing is deleting Tornadoes from existence or forcing the Terra. And when you force the Terra, a lot of these
Hmm.
Tornadoes are Terra Ghost. Now the Tornadoes is going to lose to the Chiyu. So I think that switching the Ogerpon from Wellspring to Cornerstone on this archetype was a really great call. And it's really great to see again these new Pokemon with the Blood Moon Ursaluna and the Ogerpon do well and adapt, and hopefully break into that top four soon.
Sooner or later, it's only a matter of time.
Yes, LA, it's going to top four LAIC. I'm going to try speaking it into existence. The final team that we had in the top eight is Justin Tang, who
The
is
goat.
no no stranger to top cut, using a Regulation B team.
Justin is the absolute goat, man.
I don't know
If
what to say about
Roaring
this
Moon,
team.
if Roaring Moon could KO, I mean, if Salamence could KO Roaring Moon with Draco Meteor, then we would be talking about how Justin Tang is the greatest Pokemon player of all time. Um, so this man took Tailwind, Choice Scarf, Salamence to a top eight finish at a regional. Just
It
unreal.
and it's not like because like Salamence, I believe at San Diego to start off the last season, Salamence did make I want to say it was top eight, where Jody ran a rain team with Salamence, um, and then we just never saw it again. To be quite honest, a few people in my building group brought up Salamence last weekend for this tournament specifically, and was told like that ain't it. And then they
Here
were
we
telling
are.
the same people yesterday, you better apologize. It probably is more so Justin Tang and like Tang's like building group just being completely cracked, and it's a player diff. It's a cool mon. The Scarf Tailwind is really great. It's probably one of the fastest Tailwind setters that isn't a Prankster setter or Roaring Moon, who it apparently can't KO.
You were talking about that special defense stat earlier, so
I was watching Boyd's Roaring Moon just take that Draco Meteor to the face, living on 1 HP. It just absolutely nutty. And to go on
outrageous.
and to go along with the Salamence, it's supported by everything's really supported by the Pelipper, being able to set the rain, which makes the Amoonguss and the Goldango less terror reliant in front of these fire types. It makes your Iron Bundle's Hydro Pump hit incredibly hard. It makes your Salamence hit its Hurricanes all the time.
Hmm.
Um, One of the really cool things with this Pelipper as well is that it's using Weather Ball instead of Hydro Pump for more
Yeah,
consistent offensive damage, and it having both Wide Guard and Protect, the ability for it to protect itself and its partner two different ways is really great.
for sure. It's nice when you don't miss moves. That
It's
always
the best.
stinks. So running Weather Ball when you set your own rain is pretty consistent. There's not a lot of Torkoal running around in this format. The majority of Tornaduses are Rain Dance anyway.
Hmm.
So your Weather Ball is very cool in that regard. But also, if Sun is set, now you have a Fire type move that you can use, which is something that Pelipper doesn't have in its kit to begin with.
Nope.
So it's some very unique calls here that worked really really well for Justin. The Iron Bundle, which I know is something that he's been playing with for a while, something he's very comfortable with. Something that I think is finally getting the credit it deserves because it's so good at speed control, and that Amoonguss back in the fold as well. This one's Citrus Berry, which is very classic, like Reg C Amoonguss,
Hmm.
uh, you know, as opposed to the Rocky Helmet, which was a little bit more popular, I believe, today. Something that I saw a little bit more often.
Yeah.
But yeah, really awesome team here.
I think one of the other cool things with the Iron Bundle, when you're using this rain team, the bulky waters that your opponent might have is a huge become a huge issue, and to have Stab Freeze Dry to threaten those water types, like because when you look at this team, the first thing I'm thinking is, well, once they get rid of the Salamence, Wellspring Ogerpon kind of runs through you. Well, now you have to deal with the freeze dry as well, along with the hurricane on the Pelipper. So it has like all of these answers to what you would think would be its built-in counters, and it's just in general just a really cool team. And it's very weird that with not Pelipper, Polytoad added back into the game, that the weather setters that we've been seeing succeed, or at least two of the main three weather setters that we've seen succeed, are Pelipper and T-Tar, which we've had the entire time.
Yeah. And that, just while you're speaking on that, that's because like Pelipper can actually do other stuff
Yep.
that isn't setting the rain. It can set Tailwind, it can do wide guard stuff, it can click Weather Ball, like Politoad's a little bit limited to like Hydro Pump or Chilling Water or whatever water move you want to run. Helping Hand,
Perish
maybe
Song.
Parasong or Hypnosis. It doesn't have that strong support move that the Pelipper. It doesn't have the offensive output that the Tyranitar brings to the table. And that's why we continue to see, these older weather setters continue to do so well.
Yeah, I think, and that's just in general with Pelipper just fits the more offensive format. Even our balanced teams, Paul, it's a balanced team. Roaring Moon, Iron Hands, Flutter, Lando, and Heatran all just put out just absolutely disgusting amounts of damage. And all five of those Pokemon, if you aren't ready, can just sweep through your teams. But it's a balanced team. And when the issue turns into Politoad just not having any sort of offensive output, and the pace is just too slow for it. Its own pace is too slow to keep up with the amount of damage that's being put out in the format right now. I think I think if we got Polytoad to start off with instead of Pelipper, in Polytoad would have been a lot better in Regulation A, maybe Regulation B, when the power
Hmm.
level and the pace were a lot slower. But at this point, especially with it losing Scald, it's just not able to keep up with things. Yeah, no, it was. This was a really fun weekend to watch. To be like, I was actually able to watch pretty much all of the matches this week, which was a treat to be able to get everything in. And yeah, each stream match, and especially like day two, it was just some of the most amazing Pokemon that we've seen in this format. It has rapidly um, developed, just due to the fact that we've had four straight majors. And I'm curious to see what the 2 week incubation of no regionals does for the people who are planning on going to LAIC in a
Mm.
few weeks. So I'd say moving on to like the next thing, with LAIC coming up and with everything that we've learned, um, before we sign off, where do you think the meta is going with everything? We've seen, I think it settled to an extent over the last couple weeks. What's the next step?
I like personally don't think it's really changing much from here. I think we'll keep having some, you know, new Pokemon pop into the top 12, but I think we're going to be, chilling with mostly the same Pokemon for a little while. Um, but I think that there is a lot of room for the format to potentially bulk up further. Um, you know, what when are we going to start seeing these strong like dozo bulky teams, and we had one finish in ninth place with
Yeah.
Carson. We're gonna see one of them do well. We'll start seeing, I think, screens teams. We've seen the snow go, do well for a while. I think we'll start seeing maybe some more Grimmsnarl, potentially. But I think we found our little format here. We had the same team win 2 weeks in a row. The
Yeah.
only difference being that Chuppa had Protect on his Urshifu rather than Detect.
Yep.
And we'll get like unique Pokemon every now and then, but I think we're about where we're at. What about you?
I relatively agree. I think if you're given some of these top players who are going to show up to LAIC, someone's going to figure out what the answer into the Shirafumi team is, or just Tornadus or Shifu in general. At the start of the format, we thought that it was going to be Wellspring Ogerpon, and we are just woefully mistaken. I think the Pokemon that I think we're going to see a lot more usage out of is, I think, Cornerstone Ogerpon, with the number of fire types that are in the format and the ability to just completely take Tornadus out after, like, on the first turn. I think that is a Pokemon that hasn't really been explored enough, partially because people just gravitated to the other Ogerpons, and now that we saw that the other Ogerpons didn't do perform as well this week and they fell off in usage, maybe it's time to reconsider Teal Mask and Cornerstone Ogerpons.
Yeah, I think both of those Pokemon are very underused and undervalued at the moment. I think they add a lot, that maybe they just we haven't really been thinking about so far.
Mm.
So I like those calls as well. Are you ready to get out of here?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to take this off. This is very warm. I am sweaty right now.
Well, thank you all so much for watching episode 191 of Littleroot Lessons. I'm Jay, joined by Ro as per usual. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment all the fun YouTube stuff. Follow me over on Twitter. Follow us over on Twitter at LR Lessons. Follow me at JMcG10. Follow Ro at RoVGC. Rose Cheeks.
Rose tinted cheeks. It's
Rose
the
tinted
Tyler song.
cheeks.
It's those rose tinted
Yeah,
cheeks.
but
Yeah, it's them dirt colored
I
eyes.
got a little closer there. Rose tinted cheeks on Blue Sky. And I think we're at LR Lessons on Blue Sky.
We are.
Um, if you're listening over on Spotify or Apple Music, make sure you guys leave a rate. Join the community Discord. That's where you'll find all of us hanging out. Um, the website, lrlessons.com, and you can always find us and help support the channel with Patreon and Discord supporter tiers. Shout out to Johnny Bravo Sr. and Papa Swish for Patreon, and Smeargle for the Discord subscriptions. And that, I believe, is it. I have been joined by Sully, and this is Cal and BD1 signing out on my way to Tantalore.
Have a great week, everyone.
See you guys next week. Peace.